Hi friend, my name is Eric Carter-Londine, and I am the host and producer of True Consequences podcast. This is not your typical true crime podcast. You see, my brother was murdered over 3 decades ago in New Mexico, and I have been fighting for justice for him ever since. I created this show to advocate for my brother's case and for others in my community who are seeking justice. I cover cases with an empathetic lens because I know what it's like to seek justice for a family member. True Consequences covers cases from New Mexico and the American Desert Southwest. Give my show a shot. You can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or you can go to trueconsequences.com. Thanks for listening and stay safe.
You're listening to Missing Persons, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime,
Beyond Bizarre True Crime,
Citizen Detective, and
Campus Killings.
all of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast do not necessarily represent those of the podcast, its creators, or sponsors. If you would like to discuss a missing persons case on this podcast, please be sure to visit missingpersonspodcast.net. This episode may contain unsettling or disturbing subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Missing Persons, a podcast dedicated to spreading the word about people who have vanished under mysterious or unexplained circumstances, and the family members who are looking for answers. I'm Jess Betancourt.
And I'm Mike Morford. Together we created this podcast to help give a voice to people who continue to search for their missing loved ones, in some cases even after decades have gone by. In each episode, you'll hear from Jess giving listeners the backstory and the basic facts of the disappearance.
Then Mike will speak with someone who's intimately connected to the missing person, and his guest will share their story with us.
Please stay tuned at the conclusion of this episode to hear about our Patreon program and our commitment to help find people who have gone missing. We'll also share with you where you can find more information and how you can join our team and help our efforts. You'll get recommendations for other podcasts we think you'll enjoy, and more.
So sit back and enjoy this episode, and who knows, maybe you can help us find someone who's missing.
Episode 60, Nicole Marranca. Nicole Dawn Marranca was born on December 11th, 1989. Nicole was a normal little girl who loved horses. She started riding at age 4, and it became a lifelong passion of hers. Her own horse was a white and black American paint horse she called Shimmer. According to the Ithaca Voice, Nicole rode Shimmer in competitions all over the region and at the New York State Fair, sometimes winning ribbons. Nicole's parents unfortunately broke up, and her father, Nick, remarried a woman named Kelly. Nicole bucked against Kelly and Nick's rules and standards, so she left their home in North Tonawanda and moved in with her birth mother in Ithaca. According to Nick, Nicole started using drugs when she was just 15 years old. His sweet, equestrian-obsessed daughter became a junkie. Nicole's family is open about her heroin addiction and crack habit. As an adult, Nicole worked as an escort named CJ to pay for her addiction, and she had an arrest record. She had no regular home address, and her family describes her as homeless. She associated with sex workers and other addicts. But no matter what the difficulties were that she was facing, Nicole always remained in touch with her family. She and her mother, who was also an addict, were both living in a homeless encampment when Nicole went missing. They relied on each other for support, and Nicole talks to her father, Nick, on the phone very often. Nicole was a mother to a 4-year-old girl when she vanished at age 27. Her father, Nick, and his wife, Kelly, got custody of little Brianna when she was born, hoping that eventually Nicole would clean herself up and be able to take on her rightful role as a mother. Nick permitted Nicole to visit Brianna at the Marranca home, but he knew she would not be able to last long without access to heroin, which was not permitted in their house. The last visit Nicole made to Brianna was October 2016. On that visit, she spent the night on a Barca lounger in her daughter's room, but she woke up exhibiting the telltale signs of withdrawal that included pacing, being jittery, and chain smoking. Nick and Kelly sadly asked Nicole to leave and not return unless she was sober. Nick spoke to Nicole over the next few months as she called him often. She wanted to come visit Brianna again, but she never did. Her father said that even though he knew she would spend the money on drugs, he would sometimes give Nicole money when she said she needed to eat. The second to last time he spoke to her, she asked for money and he sent some. She called him to thank him, chewing potato chips so he could hear that she had bought food. And then Nicole stopped calling. Nicole was officially last seen in Ithaca, New York on August 18, 2017. Reports place her at the Economy Inn at 658 Elmira Road around 8 o'clock p.m. The police believe that Nicole went to another house to get ready for her date that evening and that she was picked up by a white man driving a black pickup truck. The police have spoken to the woman who lives at the home Nicole was believed to be at, but she reportedly does not know who picked Nicole up or where she was going. The only possible sighting of Nicole was on the same day she vanished. Her identification was found at the Old Goat Gear Exchange at 318 East State Street in downtown Ithaca on the 18th. Police will not confirm whether this sighting was legitimate or whether Nicole was at the exchange that day at all. When Nicole went out of contact, her family initially hoped that she had just taken off for a few days. Nonetheless, after Nick received a call from Nicole's mom on August 27th, asking if they'd heard from her, they advised her to report Nicole missing right away. She had been MIA for a week at that point. So the Ithaca investigators received a missing persons report on August 27th. On September 5th, after just 9 days, the Ithaca police issued a press release stating, quote, "Ithaca Police Department personnel have exhausted all leads in this case and are requesting assistance from the public. If you have any information about the current whereabouts of Nicole Marranca, please contact the Ithaca Police Department Investigations Division." When the cold weather came and there was no word from Nicole, it became clear to her family that Nicole had not just dropped out of sight for a few days. Their concerns heightened that something could have happened to her, whether an overdose or hooking up with the wrong person. Nicole met her clients by posting alluring online ads offering to meet, which could make her vulnerable to predators. Her father, Nick, and his wife, Kelly, have personally traveled to Ithaca and spent hours searching for Nicole in the areas of Tompkins County where she was last seen near the Economy Inn. They have walked the railroad tracks and picked up blankets and bundles that could be disguising Nick's daughter's form. They've organized and participated in a volunteer search for Nicole that took place in April 2018 in a wooded area behind the Ithaca Walmart on Fairgrounds Memorial Parkway. This area is referred to by locals as the Jungle. It is a place where homeless and drug-addicted drifters are known to set up makeshift camps. From the Ithaca Voice, quote, "Nicole Marranca was rumored to have been dope sick and sleeping in a tent there the day before she went missing," end quote. The search did not turn up Nicole, but the family did find a leather jacket stuffed into a shopping cart where several of the homeless people told Nick and Kelly Nicole used to keep her stuff. Nick told the Ithaca Voice, quote, "I'm waiting for the worst, but I'd love to hear the best." In February 2018, with Nicole missing for 6 months, Ithaca police officer Jamie Williamson told the Ithaca Voice that while the case is still open, there were no new developments and police were renewing their request to the public for any information about Nicole. Officer Williamson said that his department was working to investigate the many rumors that were coming in to determine whether any of them were valid. By the second anniversary of Nicole's disappearance, a seasoned investigator had been placed in charge of her case. At that time, in 2019, investigator Kevin McKenna told the Ithaca Voice he had followed up on more than 100 leads, and he believed that the case is solvable. McKenna retired, and a new investigator is on the case now, which is still listed as open and active. However, the family has been openly critical of the efforts of the Ithaca police, saying they have not prioritized Nicole's case because, to that agency, she was just another homeless addict with a record. We don't know whether the police ever looked for surveillance footage of the black truck, footage from the Economy Inn, or footage from the Old Goat Gear Exchange. We also don't know whether police have investigated Nicole's phone records to determine whether they can shed any light on her location. but we do know that they have her phone number and carrier information. Since Nicole was posting online to advertise her services and look for drugs, her phone would certainly provide crucial information about who she was speaking to and perhaps even the identity of the person who picked her up in the pickup truck. Nicole's family is realistic about the chances that she's still alive. Some part of them hopes that she did leave of her own accord or is being held somewhere. They say they do not believe she would have deliberately taken her own life. But if she were alive, they have no doubt she would have been in touch with her father, as they had a special bond. No matter what the outcome, they just want to find her. The family is offering a $5,000 reward for any tip that directly leads to the finding of Nicole Marranca. She is described as between 5 foot and 5'4" and 110 to 130 pounds. She's a Caucasian female with sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. Nicole has a tattoo on her back between her shoulder blades of a red, white, and blue Grateful Dead skull with green leaves below it. Her ears are pierced. Her hair was cut above her shoulders at the time of her disappearance, and she sometimes wears a red wig. She may be going by the initials CJ. Mike Morford sat down to talk to Kelly Marranca, Nicole's stepmother, about her stepdaughter's case. That conversation is coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, Kelly, and welcome to Missing Persons. We're happy to have you on to help with your daughter Nicole's case.
Thank you.
It's been 5 years this month since Nicole vanished, and that's no anniversary that a parent wants to have. How tough has the last 5 years without having Nicole know what happened or been on you and your family?
It's been horrible. I'm her stepmother, so her father gets to where he just shuts it out. And, he wants to think that she just left to try to get away from the lifestyle she was living and started a new life. So that's how he deals with it, I think. And he don't like to talk about it too much. So I'm the one that has to be the advocate for everything. And I don't have to. I just want to, because she lived with us. She was like my daughter. And I just miss her. She was a good kid. The last time with no answers, it's been kind of hectic.
And you mentioned your husband sort of shuts things out, and you think that's maybe because he's a man. A lot of us men tend to not deal with our feelings, and we try and push them aside. Is that a little bit of what's going on?
Well, that, and Nicole was his firstborn daughter, and he always, that was his baby. Not that he doesn't love his other kids, but that was his baby.
Yeah, just too painful to think about everything.
Yeah, especially when you think about what the possible outcome is.
Sure. And before we get into Nicole's case and what happened, the things we know, the things we don't know, can you tell listeners a little bit about Nicole herself?
Whenever Nicole was younger, from the time she could probably walk, her mother and her grandparents on her mother's side had horses. They had thoroughbreds. So Nicole used to be so involved at the racetracks with the horses, and she would do horse shows with the 4-H clubs. She qualified for the New York State Fair a few times, and that was her passion until she got a little bit older, and she decided, go hang out with the kids and do more things. And the horse shows weren't as important, but she still did them. As a matter of fact, she did horse shows even when she was pregnant with her daughter in 2013. So, but those would be the last year that she did her horse show. Her and her horse actually had the same birth month and same birth year, so they grew up together.
Wow. So that was a real important part of her life.
Yes.
Oh. And then you mentioned she had a daughter too, and what was that like, adjusting to life as a mother for her?
Well, she was an addict, so she knew as soon as she found out that she was pregnant that we were going to take the baby. That was already a discussion and an agreement. So as soon as Brianna was born, we went to the hospital, and they kept her for about 5 days to make sure everything was good, and then we brought her home. So we've had her daughter ever since.
And that's a sad trend that I see in a lot of the missing persons cases that I do cover. I read that Nicole fell into that life of addiction, as you mentioned, that she was homeless. She may have worked as a sex worker, things like that. And that seems like a very common trend when people go missing. And I guess it's because they are in situations where they may wind up in harm's way. Do you think that her case, when she went missing because of these things in her life, that it wasn't maybe given as much priority by police because of that lifestyle?
Yep, I do. The detective we had for the first, I want to say 4 years, because he retired last year, and I found out he retired on Facebook. And I'm like, somebody could have given us a courtesy call to let us know it would be reassigned. So he made a statement in one of the news articles, I believe in the Ithaca Voice, that he believes that the case is solvable. So he won't put it into cold case status. Well, the Ithaca Police Department now won't put it in cold case status for me to be able to get my hands on it, or anybody that I would hire to put their hands on it or be willing to help. They won't ask for state police or FBI assistance. They will not. They're keeping the case very tight with them and will not open it or let it go to anybody for help.
And was it that your hope that you would maybe get a private investigator involved to do some digging, that kind of thing?
Yes, I did have somebody who was willing to go and help me pro bono, and they just, if I can't get anything out of the police department, then obviously they can't look at anything.
Sure. That's got to be frustrating to have someone that's willing to help you and volunteer their time to help you find her, and getting pushback from the police.
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, I was even told when I went and started asking questions for some people and started asking around, the detective actually told me that if I didn't stop, he was going to have me arrested for hindering an investigation.
Oh, geez. That's not a good way to start off a search for her, is have the police clashing with you.
Right. Yeah, this investigator did not like me because I called them out on everything.
Hmm. Well, let's go back to when Nicole vanished, August 2017, 5 years ago this month. How did your family realize that Nicole was missing?
Well, she like I said, was in Ithaca. There's homeless. Her mother was also homeless at the time, and her mother lived in the jungle behind Walmart. So she used to see her mother and keep in contact with her mother every day. Her mother didn't have means of any income, so, they relied on each other to do what they had to do to get whatever they were doing, whether it be drinking, cigarettes, food. So they talked to each other every day. But since we live in Buffalo, she would always call and check in with her father. So her mother called us on the 27th and asked if we had seen her, because she had not seen her in over a week. And if we heard from her anything, or she came here to visit Brianna or anything. And we were like, no. And she's like, I haven't either. I'm going to go ask some of her friends. And none of them knew, because sometimes she would take off to New York City, Syracuse, and be gone, Rochester for a few days, 7 days, whatever. And none of her friends knew of her to be gone, or she never told anybody. And usually she would say, hey, I'll be back in a week. So that did not happen. So she called us back and said no. And of course we told her, well, you better go report her missing. And she did. And at that point, then the investigator started talking to my husband and myself, and they chased around the girl. The investigator was chasing a girl around for about a week, said it's Nicole, and she's wearing a wig. And I said, well, it can't be Nicole, because Nicole has warrants out for her arrest. And it's not a very big town, and she knows everybody. So if she had warrants out for her arrest, and we filed a missing persons report, she would be calling us, telling us, I'm here, I'm fine, tell them to stop looking for me. Because that draws the heat out of you more when you have warrants. So I said, it's not her, or she would know that she'd been reported missing. She would have told us to stop everybody searching for her, especially with the warrants. So, it's not her. Well, he insisted it was. And after about, 5 days, he's like, oh, yeah, that's not Nicole. I was like, I told you it wasn't. Mm. And the thing is, everybody thinks that mothers don't know their children. And even though she was my stepdaughter, her mother and I knew that she would not just drop off the face of the earth and lose contact with everybody.
Sure. So it sounds like even though she was, living out homeless, basically, she still found a way to keep in touch, and it was not like her to go silent.
Exactly.
What was the longest she had ever stayed out of contact before that?
With her mother, I don't exactly know, because they're out there and they don't, at that time they didn't, share with us. But with her father, sometimes it would be, every couple of days, and then sometimes you wouldn't hear from her for a week or two. But usually like 3 weeks would be it. And my husband would always call his ex and ask her, have you heard from Nicole? What's Nicole doing? And she'd say, yeah, she was just over here the other day, or I just talked to her 2 days ago. So if we didn't hear, we would contact her mother or her brother who lived out there and, find out, make sure that someone had seen her and that she was all right.
So there was always some way that you'd find out what she was up to.
Yeah.
And so you eventually do get involved with the police. The police spin their wheels chasing this other person that's not her for several days. Where was the investigation early? Did they have any clues of what happened to her? Did they think she was a victim of foul play? Did they think she had taken off? What was their thought process?
He really didn't give me a thought process, but when I told him I was going to start doing some searches, because he's like, at the end of August, the 27th was when she was reported missing. So you're getting into the beginning of September when he was, following that other girl around. So once we found out we confirmed it wasn't her, we were like, we're going to come out there and start doing searches ourselves. And he said, no, don't search for her, because we'd prefer you not to, because you could disrupt evidence. So at that point, I figured he thinks that she's deceased somewhere. So then he said after that statement that he thought that possibly hunters will probably find her in the woods somewhere. And I went, well, why is it okay for them to stumble over her and disrupt evidence, but it's not okay for me to go searching carefully because I might disrupt evidence? It didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It sounds like from the way you're talking that they pretty much wrote her off as being deceased at this point.
I'm thinking, that they did. Whenever I would call him, like some of these missing persons Facebook pages, I had somebody message me from Washington State, and said that they thought that they had seen her out there. And the thought has gone through our mind of the sex trafficking, but they don't keep you forever. I mean, like once they're done with you, they're not just going to let you go and report them. So she could have still been alive for a while if she was taking trafficking, for trafficking. But at the same point, she could have still been out there being held, not totally willingly. But when I told them that I had gotten this tip from the state of Washington, he said, well, give them a call out there and see what they got to say. They actually talked to me, and I told them that she was on NamUs, and they were going to look it up and, follow through with it, and they had my phone number. Well, then I had somebody else a couple months later from Florida say that they thought they saw her at a meth clinic. And when I called there, they said, we can't talk to you. We have to talk to the, the investigator in charge. So I called him, and nothing was really done to the best of my knowledge. And it really upset me because, what if she was down there? What if she was at a meth clinic? I don't know.
At least check it out and see if there's any possibility that it's her. They can rule her out or something.
Right. I don't know. Like you said, I think they were pretty much presumed she was passed and she was out of their hair.
It's got to be frustrating as a parent searching for a loved one, a child, that, hey, this person is out there no matter what their status is in life. They're important to you. They're a person. and they should go that extra mile to try and find them.
Yes, and it wasn't until almost a year later, it was the following, I want to say June, he told my husband and I that they were doing a search for her. And somebody took pictures and put it on Facebook and said, a woman's body was found in the jungle. That's where they called it the jungle, for the homeless encampment there behind the Walmart. And I freaked out, and come to find out they did not. But my husband had seen somebody a couple months later here in our area at a Walmart, and they were discussing the Walmart in Ithaca had a lot more than our Walmart does. And they asked, my husband, are you familiar with Ithaca? And he said yes, and he told them about Nicole. And they said, wow, we didn't even know there was anybody missing out there. And he said, well, they did one search for her not too long ago. And the guy turned around and he looked at my husband and he said, no, they didn't. And he's like, well, they showed us, someone took pictures. And he goes, that might have been an exercise for them. He goes, but they didn't do a valid search. He goes, because if they did, I would have been called in because I'm on the search and rescue team for that whole area.
Wow. So this is someone that would have been directly searching for Nicole that says that no search was done.
Yeah. And when I called the detective out on it, he said, well, it was still a search. And I said, yes, but you didn't have all parties that are normally involved in a search for a missing person involved.
And they waited for an extra long time to start a search.
Oh, my God, almost a year.
Wow, and so much could have happened in a year.
I know. Somebody could, I said something to him at one time, and he said, well, be careful who you tell what you hear, because if it is the truth, when you tell us, somebody could, if her body's somewhere, that they could take it and move it. And I'm like, well, then why don't you just act on tips that I get? Why don't you just go, Yeah, he wouldn't check certain things out because he would say it's the same story, different version.
Oh. And so they really didn't want you searching. They told you to stay away from searching. Then they're not really searching themselves. Was there any point where you sort of ignored them and said, okay, this is enough. We're going to go looking and asking questions and digging? And did you get to that point where you did that?
I did. Problem being is I don't have a lot of people's phone numbers because everybody she hung out with on the streets, they all had their burner phones. They get them shut off. They get new government phones. So there's a few people that I kept in contact with. We did conduct a few searches, but the problem I had was, he wasn't giving me any information as to where he thought that she might have disappeared at, because we knew that she was dropped off at someone's house and that she was going to meet her quote unquote date that night, and she was going to get ready there. So nobody knows who picked her up. At least that's what they're claiming, that someone picked her up and they don't know who it was. So my thought is it should be on her phone, because she went out to those websites and put herself out there, and people would, solicit her and come pick her up. So they didn't send smoke signals. They had to have communicated through that phone that she had. And they had the phone number, and they found out who the provider was. They should have been able to see phone numbers at the time and all that. So I personally think the answer's in her phone. But these people that do this kind of stuff, just buy a phone, use it for a month, they get it through Walmart, and it's not connected to their name.
Sure. And along those lines, you mentioned the phone. There might be some clues there. Did Nicole have any kind of social media at all that you could look for clues on?
No, she didn't really like that stuff. She did have her Facebook page, and then she had one, her name also known as was CJ. So she had two different Facebook pages, but there's not a lot on them. And she really didn't like using computers and email. She was, for a young girl, she was old school. She hated all that stuff.
So not much to really connect dots there and look for clues on that.
No, and she, even whenever she was posting and soliciting herself on the internet, I think people helped her put her stuff online.
And you did mention briefly that there was a supposed last address or last place she was thought to be at this house getting ready for her date. Was that person identified, talked to, the person she might have been with that last time?
The detective told us in May of 2019 that he spoke with somebody. Didn't tell us who, but a couple weeks later, accidentally blurted out this person's nickname, and that's who we believe lived there. And I'm not going to say the nickname, but he accidentally said it, and so I believe he did talk to her. And supposedly, she left, and the woman said she did not know who she was leaving with. She didn't get a name or anything or where they were going.
A lot of times, this community where people are living homeless, they're sort of, in touch with each other. They know what's going on. They hear things. Was there any kind of rumors or information that came forward about Nicole from any of the people that might have been living out with her in this area?
Oh, there was lots of them. There was rumors that someone put her through a wood chipper. There was rumors, and there still is rumors, that she's buried in the swamp, or she's in the swamp in the jungle, weighted down by stuff. There was that she's up on what they call, that she could be up in Connecticut Hill, which is kind of like a haunted, like witchy area, just south of Ithaca, where they have in the past found people tied up to trees and whatnot up there. There was rumors that somebody took her and put her somewhere near a cab company. I don't know all the streets out there. So, and that someone heard screaming. Someone said she was being held against her will in like a shed kind of thing that they heard screaming from. So you hear all kinds of, but most people are like saying that she is in the jungle somewhere.
Huh. And that's got to be very terrible to hear all those kind of rumors, and any one of them sounds awful.
Well, yeah, especially the one where they put her through the wood chipper, because coincidentally, my husband and I own a tree business. And the detective drove here to get his and Nicole's daughter's DNA in case something was found. And he said, well, a body won't fit through a chipper. And I looked up at my husband, and I looked at him, and I said, would you like to come to my yard and see my chippers? and he just looked at me. I was like, you're watching too much Fargo, because my body, I'm double the size of her, and my body would fit through the chipper. Just saying.
Oh, so he probably didn't like that, you enlightening him about the truth of that.
Yeah. But
well, you mentioned this jungle a couple times. This is, I take it the way you're describing an area in that area of Ithaca where people are homeless, like an encampment where people sort of reside and move about. How big an area is this, and how many people are out there?
Oh, there was over 50 people there at one point. It is a very large area. They post signs. If people go jogging through the paths back there, they don't bother them. But like when we went back there trying to find, to talk to people, they're nasty, because even though they're sleeping on mattresses that are soaked with rain and mud and have very little worth anything, they all think you're coming in there to steal their stuff. And they have machetes. They have knives. There's people that get stabbed in there. So, in the beginning, I used to take my daughter with me, and we would just go looking through the jungle. And since it's gotten more violent, I would not take my daughter nor go there myself unless I had somebody that was armed with me. But they did clear out the area behind the Walmart, and now they have moved somewhere else. I was like, oh, there's always Jungle 1, Jungle 2, Jungle 3. But the Ithaca Police Department has been defunded, and they have a skeleton crew now. So now I guess they have told people, or just told the police officers, from what I understand, not to arrest the homeless or the blacks.
Oh, that's a whole different issue when you have not enough police to go around, and you're asking for help in finding your missing daughter.
Right. Yeah. No. So, and it's weird. It was somebody posted something on Facebook. A homeless person was digging. They were like, what the hell is he doing? It looks like he's digging a grave. This guy was digging a huge hole. And this was just like not this past summer, but like the summer before. And people made comments like, he's getting ready for winter. He's going to store stuff underneath there to keep stuff, with ice and keep it cold, so that he could still have his cold food and have food or what have you. But it was just weird to see.
And
to see somebody in the jungle digging a hole. I mean, because that's where we're thinking, she's supposed to be.
Yeah. So that's a disturbing thing to see something like that.
Yeah. And I've had medium psychics. I've had a couple of them say that they can't connect to her, so she could not have passed. And the one psychic who was supposed to be really good out in that area did say that he's in the jungle, and he gave me a description of the person who was the person that did something to her, and I gave that description to the detective, and he didn't even say if he thought that there was someone out there that matched the description or didn't match it, or if he was going to work on it or anything.
So you're really pulling out all the stops, trying to do anything you can to try and find her, including getting psychics, and I know you've done interviews and things of that nature. What are you doing in the way of social media? Do you have any websites, web pages where people can come and provide tips or information?
We have the Find Nicole Marranca Facebook page, and the police department's phone number's on there. I'm an admin. I have a friend out that lives in Ithaca that's an admin on that. Actually, 2 people out in Ithaca that are admins on it. That way, if something has to be jumped on right away, they can advocate for me.
Do you get
my phone number?
And your phone number is on the site too?
No, I don't think it is.
Okay, but the site is that page is the main place where people should come if they think they have information or want to share something with you.
Yes, definitely. Because like I said, we live in Buffalo. It's 2.5 hours away. So I can't and we have her daughter. I have 2 other kids. We own a business. I work full time. So I can't just like jump and run the next county over. So I, count on these people to, if I need someone to walk the streets and find something out, they can usually do it for me.
No, it's good to have allies in a case like this to try and help you.
Yes. Especially when the police won't do nothing. As a matter of fact, there's people that don't even know there's someone missing from Ithaca to this day.
That live in
We
Ithaca.
put posters up. Yeah. Well, we put posters up and people rip them right down.
Oh, really? It's almost like they don't want her to be found, or?
Either that or they have a guilty conscience. And of course the detective said, well, it's not illegal to rip posters down, and it's illegal to put them up and tape them on things. So in other words, don't worry about who's ripping them down, because you're not even supposed to be putting them up.
Yeah. I just don't understand the thinking sometimes when I hear some of these interactions with police that are supposed to be helping you.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, when I come in contact with police officers and I get like a bad attitude, they want to know why. What is your problem? And I'm like, really? I know you don't know my daughter's missing, but you know what? I have no faith in the police really in that much anymore at all.
It's not a good place to be when you need their help, especially to try and find her.
Exactly.
Well, after 5 years of being missing now, how much hope do you hold out? I know you mentioned that maybe she could have been trafficked or went away from the area to try and start over. But how much hope do you hold out that she is alive? And even if she's not, if it's something worse, how important is it for you to find her and bring her home one way or the other?
Every parent of a missing child just wants them home one way or the other, I believe. I mean, that's how we feel. Just to know and be done with it. and not wonder? I mean, because in the beginning we're like, well, what if somebody has her? What are they doing to her? Are they holding her against her will? Are they mistreating her? Is she in a dungeon somewhere, in a basement, tied up? You don't know what anybody's doing to somebody. And it drives you nuts to think that somebody could be torturing your kids.
And that's, the not knowing seems like to be the worst part out of all of it, because anything could be happening, and that's like torture.
It is. And you try not to think about it, and then you get upset over it, and then you have to do other things to keep your mind occupied. I mean, there's nights that I sit up going through Facebook and reading comments and trying to stalk other people's Facebook pages that are making comments and trying to figure out if this person is like giving me, is this a good tip or a bad tip? And I go back through it and I said, did I miss this before? How did I not see this? And there's, countless hours after people go to bed that I sit up and scroll through Facebook and try to search for the stuff, my old messages, my old text messages from people.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely not giving up the fight, though, and you're willing to keep on going. And I hope that somehow you do find out what happened to Nicole, and we'll do our part on the podcast to spread the word and let people know that she's still out there someplace.
That would be great. Yeah, her daughter's going to be 9 years old in November, and she's starting to ask, are we ever going to find her? And then her most recent one is, do you think my mom had another baby and I have a long lost sister out there somewhere? So she's hoping that still has a mother, and she's hoping that she has siblings.
Yeah. Well, and that would be, a good thing if she is out there and alive and does have kids, and that means she can come home sometime.
Right. Yeah.
Well, again, I hope you do find her, and I hope you find out the truth. And if anyone had anything to do with her disappearance, I hope they're held accountable.
I pray every day that we find her and that they get the guy or the girl or whoever is responsible, and that they're held accountable. I definitely pray every day for that.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Missing Persons. If you can provide any information to help solve the case we discussed in this episode, please contact the appropriate authorities.
If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to tell your friends about Missing Persons and invite them to listen to the show. Word of mouth will help us grow and bring these cases to a larger audience. You can also help us by taking a moment to rate and review Missing Persons on the platform you're listening to us now on.
We'd like to tell you a little bit about our Patreon program. If you visit patreon.com/missingpodcast, you can sign up to help this podcast through ongoing monthly support. As a thank you, we'll give you an on-air shout-out, a thank you card and sticker, plus you'll get early access to ad-free episodes of the show and any bonus content.
Your Patreon support also goes towards helping the missing, because every dollar that we earn through Patreon will be split with charlieproject.org, the wonderful website that's been sharing information about so many missing persons cases for years. We hope you'll consider supporting the show. Just a reminder that new episodes of Missing Persons air every other Saturday. If you want to find us on social media, you can search Facebook for Missing Persons Podcast. And we're also on Twitter with the handle @missing_pod. And of course, you can find us on our website, missingpersonspodcast.net. On behalf of Jess Betancourt, this is Mike Morford saying thanks, and we'll see you next time on Missing Persons.